Hey guys, Randy here, and today is the day that Mark from the Treasure Valley Bee Club is going to do a hive inspection. And so I thought, what a great idea for a video. So let's go.
Hi there, this is Mark from the Treasure Valley Bee Club, and I'm going to do a demonstration of a first-time hive inspection. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is before you do a hive inspection, you absolutely have to have a reason for doing that inspection. So you don't just want to go out and start digging through your hive. You want to know why you're there. So for people that just installed a package, say 2 weeks ago, your objective is to see how your hive has progressed, how much wax has been drawn, if the queen is laying eggs, and just how far it's come along. You rarely have to find your queen. There are times when you have to find her, but at this point you do not need to find your queen, and I do not suggest you take the time to try and find her, because the more you look for the queen, the harder she's going to be to find, and the more chance you take of crushing her or killing her. So let's get going on this one. Okay, so you're going to lift your lid, and the first thing you're going to look for is population. How many bees are up top? It's a good sign if you've got bees up top. They have been using this entrance. Now, one of the other things that you should be doing at this point, looking at your hive, is a nice new hive has a great smell to it. It's kind of a warm bread honey mixture, and use that. Use your nose, because you can tell right away if your hive is healthy through your nose. The other thing is, listen to your sound. When I pulled this inner cover off, you'll notice that there really is no sound right now. There's just the normal buzzing. If your hive was queenless, if your bees were in distress, you would have heard kind of a growl as I pulled that off. If they're just acting like this and they're calm, you pretty much can guarantee yourself you've got a queen right hive. So that's kind of the first thing to remember in your inspection. So what am I looking for? Number one, look at your population. We've got, in this case, we have what I'm going to call 5 frames with bees on the top, but also you can look down through the frames and you can see that we've pretty much got a good population in almost this whole hive. Now we're going to be pulling frames for this inspection, and the thing you want to do is start pulling from the side that has the least number of bees. You don't want to be pulling this frame because you might be rolling bees or crushing bees in the process. So we're going to start over here, and I always start with the second frame. You just basically loosen it from one side and then the other side, and if we go to the side that doesn't have a lot of bees, you aren't going to have to worry about crushing them. And we don't expect to see a lot of bees, but what you're looking at here is drawn comb. In a brand new hive, you won't have this much drawn comb. It'll still be down to the foundation. But as the bees put on new comb, it's just, I really love it. It's white, it's translucent. We have a little bit of honey up here. So that's all we have in this frame. It's very light, has virtually maybe a dozen bees. Not much to look at here. That's to be expected on your outside frames. One of the clues, if you're actually looking for the queen, is that she stays away from the light. So your chances of finding the queen are going to be better on the back side of this frame than the front side that I'm looking at. But as you draw this frame away, take a quick look down at the next frame, because if the queen was there and she's running, you might be able to find her, but she will try to get away from the light. This frame's heavier, which means it's got more honey on it, but this one is kind of interesting. Now this frame is another good example. This one, you can see the liquid in some cells and the color in other cells. That liquid is nectar, which is honey that hasn't been thickened up yet, and the color is basically your pollen, different sources of pollen. Now on this one, we also can see our first drones. Let's see, I'll point a couple out here. That's a littler one. Let's see if we can find a big one. Okay, here's a drone. Notice he's fatter than the girls around him. His eyes cover his entire head. And the other thing that's kind of neat about drones is they don't have stingers. So they're a really good bee to start practicing picking up your queen if you want to get to that point. But these guys are basically pretty harmless and easy and kind of fun to catch. The other thing you're going to see on this one is you've got one bee that has pollen in her pollen sacs back there. You see the yellow on the back of that bee's legs. She's right up here. She's going across the edge, but you might see the pollen on the legs of that bee right there. On this one, for the first time, I'm actually seeing eggs. But if you look down in the bottom of this cell, there is a little white dot in the bottom of that, lying down on its side. It looks like about 1/10 the size of a grain of rice. And that is really good news. That basically says we have a queen that is laying. Finding eggs is an art form. It really is. Now again, what are we looking at here? We're looking at pollen that they brought in all the color. When your bees get further along, when your eggs have hatched after 10 days, they get capped. And what you're looking at here is capped brood. This is absolutely what you want to see as a beekeeper. And the brood in the center here, the flat caps, basically mean that it's your standard worker bee brood. But you notice down here you got a little bit different kind of capping. These are bigger cells, these are your drone cells. So your drone brood, your drone capped brood will actually have kind of a snow cone on the outside. Now if we're able to get a few of the bees to spread, we'll look at some of the larvae that's hiding in the bottom of some of these cells. Okay, on this frame, this is becoming what will eventually be what we like to see in a frame, which is kind of a rainbow effect. The way that the bees like to do things is they will have the brood in a half circle at the bottom of the frame, then they'll have a layer of pollen on the next rainbow edge, and up in the corners, you can see it starting here, this is where they're going to keep the honey. And the way that they feed the brood when it's uncapped is they will go up, collect the honey, mix it with some pollen, making bee bread, and they will come down and they will feed it to the larva. So when this frame isn't fully drawn out yet with the honey, or it doesn't have the honey showing as well, but this is the kind of frame that you want to see, is this nice rainbow pattern with the bees, pollen, a ring of pollen around it, and then honey up in the corners. And there's our queen. Not that I was looking for her, but occasionally you get lucky and she'll come out. Now you see that one is marked red, which means that she's last year's queen. She is big. She isn't small yet, so they are not even beginning to think about swarming, but we have found her, and now the thing to do is to make darn sure that you do not crush her. So we found the queen, and very, very carefully I'm going to put her back in, and we do not need to go any further in this inspection. Now, the thing that you want to do to minimize disruption to the hive is put all of the frames back in the same order you pulled them out. If somebody were to go into your house and pull out all the walls and put them all back in different order, in different configurations, it would be a little more upsetting than if they just at least put them back in the same way they found them. So I'm being very careful here to put the frames back in exactly as we pulled them out. Now, before you put the hive back together, you want to push all of your frames tightly together, and you want to leave equal space at both ends. But it's very important that your frames be close, because any space you leave between the frames, the bees are going to fill it with wax, and you start getting a situation where you're going to be rolling bees every time you lift up or every time you pull out a frame. So make sure these are all tight together. And when you're putting on your inner cover, these bees are in good shape. They're not up on the lips, but typically if you've got a lot of bees up on your sides, like this girl is up here, you want to put your cover on at an angle, at a 45-degree angle, and you just kind of want to roll it in place. And what that does is it pushes the bees off the edge. Okay, that's it for this edition. Thanks.
Alright, so that's all I have for you for today. Special thanks to Mark for taking the time to do the hive inspection today. But if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to see more videos, and I will see you in the next video.